A little over 3 months ago, I made a Minato vs each Hokage deathmatch video detailing how Minato would perform if placed in the final battles of the other Hokages against characters such as Orochimaru, Madara, and the Kinkaku Force. However, unlike Minato, Tobirama was neither born with unparalleled talent, nor is he someone considered to be favored on this channel, so I wanted to discuss the man who pioneered the modern shinobi era as we know it while simultaneously understanding and bettering grounding Tobirama's true power against even the Hokage death matches against foes including EMS Madara, Orochimaru, and the Masked Man. Just how strong is Tobirama though? And exactly 500 chapters before even being reanimated in the war arc, Tobirama would be brought back through Orochimaru in a much more inferior Edo Tensei state, nowhere near his full power, yet even with such a restraint, Tobirama demonstrated that he's more than capable of not only combo attacking with base Hashirama, his elder brother, but even keeping pace and pressing old man Hiruzen through even his basic water style, just like his water wall, which fully overcame Hiruzen's Dragon Flame, which is stated to be the strongest fire style in the world, very befitting for his title of Hokage, which is something that forces the first fanbook to state that the Hokage stands at the peak of not only Konoha, but the world at large, 3 separate times, which would align with the reverence of such a title that Kabuto remarks makes him the strongest of the 5 principal territories. Applying this to not only Hiruzen, but even this heavily weakened Tobirama should be consistent as well, seen as the bystanding Anbu after witnessing Tobirama overpower the strongest fire style in the world in a singular hand-signed water wall, and following up with a water dragon state, "This is what it takes to be Hokage," implying that this Tobirama has what it takes to be Hokage and by virtue stand among the peak of the shinobi world, which is something that the second Hokage already once did during his very own reign as Hokage, where he would command many high-level Konoha teams through the First Great Ninja War, including his own escort teams comprised of young elite shinobi like Hiruzen, Danzo, Kagami, yet the possibility of Tobirama having to be the decoy would have been preposterous considering there's no greater shinobi in Konoha as professed by Danzo, further pushing, the already obvious notion that regardless of your interpretations of Tobirama during his era, following the disappearance of Madara and the death of his brother, would have been standing at the peak of the shinobi world, which is likely due to his many efforts within that very war, where his water style would be displayed upon even higher degrees, with the 1 decade 100 ninja guy stating that Tobirama used to flood entire battlefields through tsunamis, using other high-level water style like, his water lance that's also considered to potentially be able to cut anything according to the very same guide. And when you couple this with a potential reputation of using Edo Tensei to further utilize kamikaze-style bombers with tandem, it's no wonder he would have stood among the elites of the world. However, as many of you know, Tobirama's unwavering discipline to better his own ability to the point that the 3rd data book calls him the most dedicated shinobi ever, just under Lee and Guy, and his name literally translates to progress and improvement, would only be half of what makes Tobirama so special. See, when coupling his expeditious battle nature with his sheer speed, it should threaten the most dangerous and powerful threats, such as when reanimated in the war arc in a weaker Edo Tensei than his prime. Again, Tobirama would still show his combative prowess, leading the charge alongside the Hokage against Obito, who recently absorbed the entire 10 Tails, obtaining a power much greater than even Hashirama's. Yet, with Minato and Naruto visibly sweating, Jubito would first still notice the Senju brothers charging completely through them, yet Tobirama, being so battle-prone and fast, would still react via him placing bombs across Jubito's body in several different and random locations, likely due to the fact of the paper-like substance within his body still being able to be used as tags, and him likely just tag those bombs, and Jubito would simply run into the ones he tagged. Another interpretation, though, would be like Tobirama, like in the tandem instance, reached into his very body and marked the paper, throwing them out in a similar fashion, causing them to be placed in such a random fashion, which would also fit with how, more importantly, the second Hokage still placed the FTG marking on Jubito's left lat or armpit area, which, while one could attribute such an impressive feat to just Hiruzen can kind of do it as well, this likely isn't truly accounting for how Jubito at this point is quite unstable, and this kind of explains why Hiruzen, who is revived survived at the point he fought Orochimaru, based on the wrinkles on his face, was able to react to a similar speed by moving his shoulder, where Tobirama moved his arm, implying relativity. This is likely due to the unstable nature of Jubito, and regardless, in a much worse state though, and far more twisted form, Jubito is able to fully blitz both KCM 1.5 Naruto and EMS Sasuke, which would be a very consistent speed for Tobirama for him to also be superior to, seeing as upon dazed Minato being burdened with an exploding truth-seeking orb, Tobirama was able to body flicker to it and grab it within a potentially faster time than Minato's left arm movement towards the orb, and more importantly, Sasuke Susanoo's speed, which is commonly portrayed as a speed greater than his own combat speed, as shown when it's able to allow him to keep pace with the version 2 Raikage in the Kage Summit, which wouldn't contradict anything either, seeing as while Minato in base is obviously faster than Tobirama, he's still capable of keeping up with a dazed form of KCM2 Minato, paralleling each other as the two mirror superiors to Sasuke and Naruto, who also strive for the position of Hokage, yet have to battle alongside two Hokages. One being a carry the world on their shoulders, carefree and savior-like one, and the other a darker toned revolutionary Hokage in Tobirama, who again, like Minato, could completely intercept Naruto and Sasuke's combo charge at Jubito, where the two would be called miraculously in sync when they're, Flying Thunder God and Reciprocal Round Robin respectively in the 4th databook. The same Naruto, a little over 10 chapters prior, was able to not only react to both Madara and Obito's fire style and Mangekyo projectiles at the same time, whilst amplifying and protecting the entire Shinobi Alliance, but also Rinnegan Obito's surprise attacks from behind the back out of Kamui. This Naruto, despite being in his KCM1 form, following the obtaining and improvement of KCM2 and that link, is still able to react to this Obito who did press that version of Naruto. And while I don't personally subscribe to Tobirama being KCM2 level in speed, it's certainly something truly remarkable yet not inconsistent, seeing as Madara toys with the idea and takes joy in seeing Tobirama in such a weakened state, with him being in a much better one, claiming that the heavens are smiling upon him, considering Tobirama used to boast the fastest speed of any shinobi. And while I have voiced multiple problems of my own around the common interpretations of this statement, I do still find it to be extremely telling for Tobirama's caliber and just how legendary he once was. Firstly though, for Madara to be making such a claim, a reference point has to be established, and that's where the debate comes in. The last time Madara saw Tobirama in battle in the manga was during the Warring States period, just prior to creating a peace treaty where he would fight both Hashirama and Tobirama at the same time using his Susanoo, yet he would eventually be defeated by this Tobirama, and we wouldn't see him notice his speed after this point. This would just be briefly after Madara witnessed Tobirama blitz and kill his brother Izuna, second only to himself in ability through the Flying Thunder God. Madara not seeing how Tobirama did this should be telling enough for me to conclude that he made the claim off the basis of Tobirama being a blitz level above his brother, who's second only to himself, through unknown means, making him also faster potentially than both Hashirama and himself at that time, which seems to be a fair interpretation, as even if you assume Madara is making this claim off the battle directly after where they fought for an entire day, it should still be that Tobirama is of a speed faster than both Hashirama and himself at that point, which wouldn't hold up until the final valley, where Madara would still state that Hashirama is the only one who's like an even match for him, which is likely consistent seeing as he's more relative to Sage Hashirama and Taijutsu, as well as we'll kind of discuss later when talking about that fight. However, here, still saying that Tobirama is above base Hashirama in speed, or at least Taijutsu, shouldn't be all too contentious, as his wood style is faster than his own combat speed, and Tobirama is already shown relative to him in taijutsu speed. If you want to make this claim to its absolute utmost and just take it that far and say Tobirama is faster than Sage Hashirama and peak EMS Madara, it's fine, and you could just argue that considering how Madara knew the signs of the Edo Tensei, he likely would have had to copy it from seeing Tobirama, and it's not displayed on any on-screen fight between them, potentially implying a later one could have taken place, though I would argue it's equally likely he used it before or at another point in their full day battle. Regardless, this statement at worst simply means that Tobirama was the fastest of his era, which fits perfectly consistent and aligns with him being relative to base Hashirama, who's said to be peerless in the shinobi world, despite a large portion of the world having no knowledge of his sage mode. Madara does still revere Tobirama enough to actually utilize a Susanoo arm covering mimicking a hand when Tobirama tried to off-guard him through the water-style Heavenly Weeping, which is water formed in the mouth to be fired out at like high velocities to snipe at the opponent, take their head off. A jutsu perfect for a character like Tobirama, whose MO is to strike an opponent when they are sure of victory. Madara did choose to block it with an attack typically faster than his own combat speed though. Since he did just react to the Flying Thunder God slice, I wouldn't assert that he couldn't dodge the Heavenly Weeping. It's just more that he might not have been confident in taking that ability or tanking the attack out of his knowledge of Tobirama and likely his proficiency in water style and how he used it just to be reputably strong in battle, because he kind of saw him use it against like Izuna in the anime, which he would also use to create a cloud of smoke to then capitalize on the marked kunai, which is just a nasty strategy he could also use on opponents later, along with many other techniques like multiple high level water style ninjutsu that we haven't brought up, other types of blades he can use, genjutsus, you name it, which will come up when they are relevant. But let's begin with our first match being Madara Uchiha in his EMS state. Actually, just before that though, I would like to ask you to leave a like on the video or even consider subscribing if you don't want to miss out on the highest quality Naruto scaling. It sounds like I'm cutting a promo here, but subscribe if you want. Firstly, I want to say it's awfully unfortunate that EMS Madara plus the full Nine Tails is Tobirama's first opponent, since I spent the last several minutes discussing how powerful he is. I mean, bro, it's EMS Madara with the perfect Susanoo and the full Nine Tails. Something many people seem to be unaware of is when base Hashirama tried to take the Nine Tails down alone, he actually was quite challenged, and in the fight with his face bloodied up and his eye gashed shut. And while many, people, conflate this scene with the final valley, that's simply not the case, as you can see that Hashirama subdues Kurama after entering Sage mode, where he would then attempt to battle EMS Madara in Taijutsu, where he would be outmatched, similarly to how he outmatched Madara in Ninjutsu, which would likely be the reason as to why the databook stated the two were so close to being equals that the difference between them and the difference between victory and defeat was paper thin, leading to this Kinjutsu clash where it's pointing to, where just prior we would get the shot of the two following Sage Hashirama confronting Madara in Taijutsu, where Hashirama would have his armor blasted off and be shown in a seemingly worse condition, considering though he does still have this healing factor in play, because it does heal Madara's bite wound in the other flashback, and when Madara doesn't have such ability, Hashirama looking visibly worse is much more telling, meaning that we have a Taijutsu fighter in EMS Madara who's relative to Sage Hashirama, the full Nine Tails, who's comparable to base Hashirama, working together in complete synchronicity versus Tobirama, who's just likely relative to or slightly faster than a base Hashirama in speed. And while the anime opening 16 does display Tobirama and Revive Sage Madara fighting evenly, I wouldn't directly use this to create some case for Tobirama being able to do the same against Final Valley Madara. Based upon everything we discussed earlier though, I do still think it's something quite worth bringing up for those who would rather run with Tobirama being much faster than Madara and Hashirama. However, whilst faced with a much faster character than himself in a live Sage Madara, Tobirama's usage of Flying Thunder God still allows him to react to said levels, potentially, aiding in surprise attacks to catch this Madara as well. Multiple things like the Bringer of Darkness Genjutsu that Tobirama used in the anime could catch up, to Madara, presuming its usage was to fight Madara instead of other Uchiha like Setsuna, who doubted Tobirama's leadership and intended to overthrow him according to the third databook. So it's very questionable if his best of abilities would even work, especially with the speed disparity, and most importantly, Madara's ability to dish out well over 10 Susanoo amped Bijou bombs in a single panel. I just don't see any reason as to why Tobirama would win here, and I don't just want to shit on Tobirama for 10 minutes, meaning that Madara should likely win this 9 out of 10 times. So, let's keep it moving. Let's digress towards the two more interesting battles so we can hype up Tobirama a bit more. And the first of the which would be against Orochimaru, a candidate for the title of 4th Hokage who actually actually was endorsed by the Uchiha clan members like Yashiro, which would be something his lesser Sannin brethren Jiraiya would also be in contention for in the title of Hokage not once but twice, which he denied both times, displaying how both he and Orochimaru are more than capable of being Hokage and standing at the peak of the shinobi world, which would have been proven when Orochimaru battled Hiruzen, as we discussed earlier, allowing for him to also stand at such a peak. With even both of their mental afflictions being in play, he would still be stated to be evenly matched to the Lord Third, with even some medians like Ebisu's testimony in the anime profile guide stating that Orochimaru was stronger than the other Sannin, the Hokage, making him the most feared fighter and figure of the time. The Anbu testimony also attests to just how scared the rest of the village was, as they didn't really know if he was gonna destroy the entire nation or assassinate the Hokage, which he later did do whilst posed as the Kazekage, where he stated to be practically the same level as Hiruzen. So, can the most evil and powerful of all village enemies and the most feared shinobi of his day take on Tobirama, the second Hokage? And probably not. Some may first point to Orochimaru's confidence upon seeing Tobirama's flexing, his chakra. However, this is only from a single finger, and he literally is binding Tobirama's chakra, and he's actually having to focus his chakra in doing such. Moreover, the same Orochimaru, who's comprised of mostly Zetsu and Hashirama cells, making him much stronger, is still confident in the idea that he's incapable of taking Sasuke's current body, seeing as he likely saw the high level of relativity between this Sasuke and his brother Itachi, who, at one point, whilst much weaker, humiliated Orochimaru so bad through a 3 Tomoe Genjutsu and a hand slice that he left the Akatsuki entirely, with him telling Kabuto that Itachi is even stronger than him, picturing a 3 Tomoe Itachi, which the anime profile guides also highlighted to be superior to Orochimaru. Then, you give Itachi his Edo Tensei state, where he's arguably at his peak with his MS, and he's relative to EMS Sasuke, who would then surpass him, as stated in the 4 data book, gain more hatred over the course of 50 chapters, and then, still Tobirama would just be reacting relatively to his Susanoo and intercepting his combo attacks, performing much faster feats on unstable Jubito, giving us the basis that even though Orochimaru is a character who can take on countries alone, he isn't nowhere near Tobirama in speed. But to Orochimaru's benefit, he actually is quite proficient in battling characters who are physically superior to himself, seeing as against the Four Tails Naruto, Orochimaru was both slower and weaker and was still able to use multiple snake prone abilities like his snake summons to restrain him, whilst he would then just body replacement and soar out at Naruto, punching him across the face, where Naruto would then slash through all of his organs, yet he would simply reattach via these snakes, showing just how versatile and serpentine Orochimaru truly is, which could be a case presented if Tobirama were to use something like his water style Severing Wave, which was able to cut the God Tree roots alongside Enma, the strongest of all animal summons, or even potentially other jutsu like the Flying Thunder God Slice. However, I would argue that this reattachment ability of Orochimaru is something to be activated, seeing as Orochimaru does react to Naruto's swipe, yet due to being at such a disadvantageous position, he couldn't fully evade him, forcing him to potentially channel chakra to an ability like this, and he obviously couldn't do that with the FTG Slice. But to give him the benefit of the doubt, Tobirama is still a master of water style ninjutsu with his Water Wall, Severing Wave, Heavenly Weeping, Water Dragon, Water Bullet, you name it, all the which are abilities that he could use to engage Orochimaru, who, like Tobirama, also has all 5 nature transformations, though Orochimaru actually possesses all of the jutsu in Konoha, or nearly all, along after Tobirama's age, seeing as he stated in the 10-year anniversary guide to have such, where it further corresponds with the idea of Hiruzen loving Orochimaru's preposterous level of ninjutsu and talent. Even in his sealing jutsu, Orochimaru implies to himself, following him noticing how Jiraiya can alter Naruto's seal, he likely possesses a sealing jutsu on the level of him and the 3rd Hokage, potentially implying that it's actually the highest of all the levels in the world, which would fit with the lore ascribed to the Tetragram, which is stated to be more solid than even the 8 Tails Killer Bee's Steel Shell Seal. This shouldn't be anything contradictory towards either Hiruzen or Orochimaru's true ability and wide arsenal of jutsu, with most of Orochimaru's likely being learned from Hiruzen, who is stated by imply Orochimaru to have knowledge of every jutsu in Konoha. Yes, it's a mistranslation, though the back of the One Decade 100 Ninja Guide does still state that he mastered all of the jutsu in Konoha, yet even with such mastery in all types of jutsu in the realm of sealing and barriers, both Hiruzen and Orochimaru were contained by the Sound 4 barrier, though that's actually stated to be dozens of times weaker than that of the which Tobirama would contribute a quarter to in the war, implying that Tobirama could potentially trap Orochimaru in a barrier 6 times that of which he couldn't already get out of initially. And although Tobirama likely also knows his fair share, it's probably less than that of either Orochimaru or Hiruzen. I mean, bro knows over 1,000 genjutsu alone, but in Tobirama's case, it doesn't quite matter, as the Dragon Flame is still a jutsu that's supposed to attest to the true level of a Hokage, in which Tobirama simply scales to that, meaning their more powerful techniques are still inferior to some of Tobirama's basic water style, and even more so in the case for his other notorious jutsu like the Edo Tensei, which was so powerful that characters like Tsuchikage Mu despise it in the war, through like the ancillary jutsu like the tandem paper bombs are even more special and were likely used along with it. And while many people seem to just assume that Tobirama can use tandem with clones, I would highly doubt this, seeing as he never does it, and he created it to go along with the Edo Tensei, which is a jutsu that's far less practical to use than a clone. Though it's primarily speculative, I would assume that it's due to the regeneration factor produced by the tags where one explodes and multiple replace it. This could imply that it, the source for it needs to remain intact, or at least be in material form, at least to maintain that initial seal, which would be allowed by the Edo Tensei and not the clone, which would just simply burst. So you could still assert that like Tobirama has other types of bombs, seeing as like he does do something kind of similar in the Naruto 99 official artwork with his eyes being whited out, though for the tandem specifically, he does still need the Edo Tensei, and considering the speed disparity between both him and Orochimaru, I would argue he could actually probably pull that off, and the potency of these bombs are insane. The largest of Hashirama's legendary deity gates was able to tank a point-blank concentrated blast from the Ten Tails Bijou bomb, yet was cracked and damaged by Tobirama's tandem paper bombs. So you could just say that like the gates work upon like allocations of chakra, and they were simply deactivated since they weren't being used. However, for the sake of discussion, I won't claim that, and they are still pretty powerful. Even when Jubito is in a more primal state, he uses the TSO shield to, cover himself, potentially implying that like the Ten Tails thought it could seriously harm it, though it's kind of ambiguous. And what it could harm though is little Snake Man Orochimaru if pulled off, because it would obviously just evaporate him. Even after regenerating his organs and limbs, upon seeing Four Tails Naruto's Bijou bomb, he said contact with chakras that dense could kill him, implying that it would just vaporize him. Or when you consider the Ten Tails Bijou bomb and the potency of the tandem, it's pretty clear that it would obviously kill him, which likely, also would just like bomb Madara and Kurama in the last match if you assume he has the speed to pull it off. Presuming this fight makes it past like the first attacks, he should realize that like Tobirama is simply way too fast, and he might actually need to activate something like the 8-headed Hydra, a snake of Orochimaru that's stated to be the largest and most powerful of all the snake summons, that's even more powerful than Orochimaru himself, to the point where Orochimaru was confident in taking the Totsuka Blade sword swings prior to learning its identity, potentially hinting at some potential higher ends for the Hydra, though the water lance from earlier is stated to be able to cut anything, and that guide extends to chapter 456 long after the Hydra was shown, meaning that it could likely just cut up the Hydra as well, whilst Tobirama simultaneously floods the battlefield looking for an opening to cut Orochimaru's head off, meaning that all in all, I would say that Tobirama should handily beat up Orochimaru like a 9 out of 10 times. And last but certainly not least, we have the Masked Man, who's revealed later on to be Obito Uchiha, who low-key comes into this fight under a really well-established style advantage, seeing as Tobirama has neither the means to deal with Bijou bombs nor the ability to separate Kurama from Obito, like with Minato in both his Guiding Thunder and Contract Seals respectively. And while I used to point to the idea of Tobirama having a marginal sensory advantage over Minato, granting him a better chance at capitalizing on the materialization, this simply won't work, or at least as clear-cut as it may sound. And this comes from the idea of how Minato and Tobirama unironically share the exact same bar-for-bar sensory feats. both can touch their fingers on the ground to sense 20 enemy shinobi and something in their signature to determine their power or if they're clones, and they also are like able to sense across the country to the battlefield, yet Minato's sensory ability wasn't something ever capitalized on. However, saying it's an active ability could be something to know, and maybe Tobirama could simply activate it when Minato simply didn't and was too cautious to try it, like with his Sage mode. Though like Tobirama might, though, considering his like IQ and type of like fighting style, and this could also be more prevalent in seeing the intricacies of Obito's body, because Tobirama in the War Arc was able to deduce that Orochimaru's body was mostly Hashirama cells, and he could hence do a very similar thing to Obito, as Obito's hands are exposed, giving Tobirama a potential knowledge advantage in discerning things like his durability and what have you. Which, one thing I've sort of neglected through this video, I suppose, would be like discussing something that not only Tobirama can do, but basically anybody, and it's just amplifying kunai with chakra, something shinobi commonly do as portrayed in the like Kakashi novel, which hints to why Minato is so confident like stabbing through the Raikage A and his lightning cloak with a single kunai, like with what Tobirama was confident in doing against Renegon alive Madara. So whether it's against Obito or Orochimaru in the previous match, Tobirama can simply do this. He also enters the fight with the knowledge of the Sharingan that's basically unrivaled through most of the cast, which gives him an extreme advantage, and he even knows how to capitalize on certain things and circumvent other things, like, the precognition as shown against Izuna, through him like clashing water dragons against them, which could, like likely overcome Obito if like a ninjutsu clash were to occur and he used his fire style for whatever reason. The Izuna battle would also be where he displayed his extreme proficiency in Kinjutsu or swordsmanship, which is a skill he could also utilize again to potentially harm Obito through like amplifying his blade with chakra, which is attached to his back at like all times, along with multiple kunai capable of being thrown for diversions and other strategies that he could also just like mark and stuff like he did against Izuna. This would greatly aid him in his sheer deciphering of Kamui, seeing as he was the sensei to Danzo Shimura, whose foundation members and Fu and Torne were able to decipher Kamui faster than anyone else in the manga at the youngest age, albeit Tobirama could likely also just do a similar thing of like, testing this through throwing the kunai like with potential clone feints, as he did invent the Shadow Clone Jutsu. And again, his battle strategies are of very high praise, even in the data book, which supports of how his like quick like wit unveils his wealth of intellect, and I quote, meaning that through like all the things mentioned so far, Tobirama looks pretty good coming into this fight, right? Well, where Tobirama truly fails in this fight, though, and why I wouldn't give him the win, would be due to Obito's sheer speed advantage, being able to combat Hokage Minato, who was admittedly, likely accumulating fatigue and potentially holding back in some instances, though this Obito is still capable of catching his hand when Minato slowed down, with him implying that he wasn't at full speed either. And while Minato basically stomps Obito in the following sequences, we could still gather at least some lower end of relativity through Obito being a threat that Naruto needs to master the Nine Tails to beat, as stated by Minato when talking to Naruto after the pain fight, and Kurama would later confirm this, like mastering the Nine Tails to be KCM2, which is consistent for many levels through this, like of Minato being like visualized by KCM2 Naruto, like by Kakashi, like War Kakashi and weakened Minato combo attacking on Zetsu, the same Kakashi who kept up with Obito's sheer speed, which is relative to KCM2 Naruto. Like he's also like the fastest of the 4 Hokage, which are called the biggest of the big fish, meaning that like as a unit they're greater than KCM2, and obviously this would be like through him like showing like speed far beyond that of Tobirama's, through him completely blitzing and outspeeding him to the battlefield along with the other Hokage through his body flicker, which Tobirama further supports by stating it's faster than his own, and his striking is quick too, implying a connection or conjunction between the two speeds. This would align with how Minato is able to rotate his body 90 degrees and move his Rasengan, basic combat maneuvers in short, in the subspace of the Flying Thunder God that's described in the second data book, which further corroborates the idea of the FTG being a speed-based technique so fast it's not even comparable to body flicker, meaning that Minato's combat and reaction speeds are of a level that like is far, far, far beyond this. That's already faster than Tobirama. So this is why I kind of think it's quite clear that like it's kind of clear just how impaired Minato was in the war arc and why he was actually dazed despite being in KCM2, and why Tobirama grabbing the TSO faster than him is basically a feat null for both parties in terms of relating it to one another. Of course, if you do subscribe to Tobirama being a blitz level faster than KCM2 Minato at full power, then by all means, bro is bullying this Obito. However, I just simply wouldn't say this is the case because it's kind of obvious, leading to the idea of Obito simply being faster than, or at least very comparable to Tobirama in speed, which shouldn't really shock anybody. Even though he's only 17 or 18 based on graduation times, he's still a threat requiring KCM2 to beat, showing just how formidable he truly is and why Minato's showings during that night were so impressive. And this isn't anything to even dunk on Tobirama. I mean, he's clearly the elite of the elite. It's just that Obito was a monster, plain and simple. With the speed disadvantage, Obito's, willingness to make better use of the multiple other abilities are probably likely seen, as it was Minato's speed that prohibited him from ever catching and suckering him into Kamui, which is something that he also could likely do due to Obito, though if he doesn't, again, many other techniques like his Zetsu amped wood style could emerge, this being a technique that's stated to be the highest level of blood shedding ability among the wood release jutsu. If Obito also concentrates more chakra, this ability even extends to his ability to manipulate the forest and branches around him to then fire out at Tobirama, and saying Obito could use a Zetsu amped ability shouldn't come to a surprise, seeing as his left arm actually oozed off following Minato's Rasengan attack, implying that Obito equipped potentially enough Zetsu cells for the rest of his body to act as if they were a Zetsu body. I would concede that Tobirama's ability to mark locations or kunai to then teleport to, in hopes to relocate away from most of the branches, is quite likely, seeing as his nerve transmission speed is close to revived Madara, who's likely far faster than Obito. So Obito won't be catching him easily, seeing as the FTG is what allowed Minato to perform so well, and space out multiple moves, such as when Obito nearly caught him in the chains and he just simply teleported out, which is something that Tobirama could also do. Coupling that with his Flying Thunder God Slice, I could certainly see an outcome of Tobirama potentially baiting Obito and using that to win. However, it is a more likely option that he's just going to be that it's just going to be Obito winning via Kamui, and if the diversion doesn't work, and it only did initially because it was performed by somebody much faster than Tobirama, then Kamui stays passive and Obito doesn't get damaged whatsoever through this fight. The Ninetales is also on a rampage, so Tobirama has to beat Obito quickly, which we've established isn't likely. Then he has to separate it, meaning that if he even makes it past Obito and he could somehow separate it, he doesn't have the ways to deal with Kurama or his massive Bijou bombs as he's rampaging through the village. His best bet would be bombing Kurama via tandem paper bombs, which he simply can't do, seeing as the other matches he's in the village with the aim of protecting it. So all in all, against Obito, the Silver Slicer, second Hokage, fails, giving Obito the win 6 out of 7 times. Before wrapping up the entire video, I would like to preface that for those who are curious upon the outcome of Tobirama versus Pain, saying that's Tsunade's match per se, then I would actually say that Tobirama has the clear edge in that one despite Pain's lore, and if you want to know more about that, check out my Each Hokage versus Pain in Jiraiya's Place video, which like many other videos, I'm sure you'll find some enjoyment, maybe some newfound knowledge, from indulging in. And if you have enjoyed or learned something from this video, I mean, even hell, if you just listening to Naruto content, I mean, hey, I'm your guy, feel free to subscribe. But yeah, with that being said, have an awesome day. God bless you all and love you guys.